Like at award shows, I know you're supposed to come up here and go, wow, that was a great introduction, but holy shit, that was a great introduction. Is this loud enough? Am I using microphones? Yeah. So because I'm a poet, I've sort of doubly shot myself in the foot, by which I mean, not only have I written and produced a book that's free, but I'm also not reading from it this evening, despite, mostly because baseball in Philadelphia this year is so sad that I might actually read it if I read it. So, but I do have a couple of postcards, some of which have a little QR code on them that if you actually want to get the app, you can just zap it magically via technology, and it works. So I will put those out at the break. What I am going to read is something that's, I was just talking with Gary about my propensity to edit the life out of things as I get further into them. So I'm going to read something that's a little bit new in the hopes that I have not yet done that. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But first, to get my nerves out a little bit, I'm going to read a couple of just individual sort of one-off poems, which is something I almost never write. This one is called Namaste. Inside this poem is another poem. Inside that poem, there's another, a poem. And inside that one is a fourth. And inside the fourth is a fifth poem, which is not just to say 1/5 of a poem, so sweet, so cold. Inside the fifth, there's a sixth poem, like the fourth doll and a nesting doll set, which is to say that like the seventh, eighth, and ninth poems is a distillation in increments of all the others in a system whose base is 10. Like how a star is an asterisk of massive light, a kind of indicator of a footnote of massive light, which, like these poems, seems smaller than it is, and is also far away, and receding, and holding that tiny little doll in its center, that nesting doll, or poem that never opens, but you know it is hollow, like your core, like the earth. And this one's called a poem I wrote sitting across the table from you. If I had 2 nickels to rub together, I would rub them together, like a kid rubs sticks together, until friction made combustion and they burned a hole in my pocket, into which I would put my hand, and then my arm, and eventually my whole self. I would fold myself into the hole in my pocket and disappear into the pocket of myself, or at least my pants. But before I did, like some ancient star, I'd grab your hand. And this one is not a very good poem. And the title will suggest why. It's called Poem I Wrote Prepping for Class, by which I mean, of course, poem I wrote when I was not actually prepping for class. But it was the first day that my oldest son went to first grade and got on a school bus, which nearly sent Patty and myself into massive panic. Anyhow, it's called Poem I Wrote Prepping for Class. My son got on a bus to school today. I feel old as a branch. I can only think in Junius Standard, and spent the last hour before sleep thinking about sleep. In all this bounty, I've earned very little. Certainly not this sad song in this cafe where I'm working. What is work? An iced latte and a little sump pump in my chest. What do I work for, other than that gurgling sound the straw makes in the cubes at the bottom of my heart? Time has left a notch for every year on my spine. I cannot escape. I put my money where my poem is and hide in plain sight. So, I'm going to read now from this newish thing, which among the many amazing things that happens when you have kids, for those of you who have kids, you know, is that stuff happens as if it has happened to you for the first time. And for me, the alphabet has been one of those things. So it started, I'm you think about words and sentences and all that sort of stuff. And then you have kids and you start reading alphabet books and you think about letters as divorced from words. And then in our case, our kids starting to learn how to write, and sort of watching that, it's sort of painful and really kind of beautiful in a way. Letters breaking down into their component parts, so I'm talking about vertical lines and horizontal lines and diagonal lines. And it really made me think about the alphabet as a kind of visual thing rather than as a kind of meaning transmitting object. So I started messing around with these poems. So I have the whole alphabet done. I'm going to read it now, and it's called The Collected Letters. And I'll read, or I will mention the letter that I'm reading about, even though most of them are sort of self-evident. And we all know the order. Sometimes don't you want to do over? Sometimes just pull some stupid thing back in your mouth. All right, The Collected Letters. A. Who lives in the little attic of an A? Often, in that room beneath the eaves, I think I see her face lost in a book at the window, shining when the light is just so, or something holy sort, a half-ghost of a ghosted lover. Once you've seen it once, A is everywhere. A. Like two linked towers, or an H, fallen in on each other, and A, two lovers reaching out for one another as they fall. Lean on me, they whisper, and A divided can't really stand. A. How intimate this Genesis. Two lovers touching foreheads. What are we going to do? Cupping each other at the elbow. The horizontal stroke, a spirit-level bubble, mediocre, an ox head down, or a vulture. B. 1 and 3 is B, a house, two minds, the mouth. Stem and demicircles, bouche, boca, two lovers, plum. Touch keeps them together, Cartesian. C. A leeward harbor or homecoming. Do you see the head in profile or constancy? A cup runneth over, a mouth shout or kiss pursed, a breath headlong toward the partly obstructed future. C. The hard-born imp of A and B, René Descartes and an egg, hatching along the x-axis, an empty nest. D. Thinking and amming, a door, dental. What's the difference if it's open or closed or half open? 2 fingers above the belly button. D is a womb. D is C and a selfie, self-destructing. The flower, still attached to the stem. E. Arms raised to the sky turn east, to others, but oh, my God, omnipresent hand and void, an E in which there exists a breath whose chaff might fly, or fling, or flare, or flap. It can no more, it can go on, go on, go on, respire. F. Once a sunflower, fair-shouldered, F's head grew too large in the sun and bowed in the storm. Its water spilled, it keeps withdrawn, keeps cantilevered. Don't ask why. G. On the back of the tongue, near the soft palate, G begins with dreams of being O. An arc in demi-repose after bringing forth fruit. Almost a circuit, its power is suggestive, illustrative of the human condition even, capped by a right angle or kind of arrow pointing to itself and a world beyond its own, a world it couldn't quite attain or contain, a way of being numerous, or a Euro-style bus stop. H. Do you remember Bran when H was cool? We can be heroes just for one day. H or H, a hope or exhale, obstacle, elevation, the silent killer. If the future is always in front or above us, you are the worst ladder ever. Not much of a fence or arch either, good neighbor. Unite heaven and earth, you cut them in half. Still, you make a lovely shibboleth. And as a lover, you are pitch perfect, always holding me at arm's length. I. Like humans, so many letters begin on the ground and evolve upright. And then God said, let there be I, and there I was. This was the 9th day. I was a hand with one bird in it, and God named that bird J, and J was good, a light, there were 2. When H became a gate, you were redundant and retreated to reason and faith. Standing on the bare ground, out of the swing of the sea, you are nothing, and see all, and that's where you and a small bird found me. J. Out of the swing of the sea, where the green swell is, we weathered together the great vowel shift, circa 15C, and ushered in the century of love. But millennials don't care one iota for the old ways. For every generation, there's a gap, and so it was for our menage. The 16th brought schism, scission, cicadas, and a modulation of cadence, a great existential schwa even. You became a psychonaut, obsessed with ego death. I turned my transcendental eyeball to parts and particles of God, and the bird, formerly known as Jay, insisted on being called the Eye from Holland, and turned to drink and cursing the Italians. Thus bon artois. K. There is no reason you should stop, but you do. A line in the sand, like understanding, is always arbitrary, always a fiction of infinity, yet finite after its kind. The line can always imagine never ending, a longer line in the mind, and so it goes with K, which is really just H without a brace. A kind of Montague Capulet of the alphabet. The verticals were told to stay apart, but what is love if not always trying to bring parallels together? And that little bastard just couldn't stay away from his enemy's daughter. So here they are, forever in the palm of someone else's hand. One, scared straight. The other, a kind of sign for the dead-end young love so often is. Not impenetrable, but unable to penetrate. A metaphor for being given the what for. K. A so-called minor chakra. The right hand releases extra electromagnetic charge from the body, and the left receives a charge from the surrounding environment. It's what Olson calls a transfer of energy, the action zone. And so K twists what should be love into a selfie. Mary Palm and her 5 sisters. L. L is what happens when my son writes J. Or, if apples really don't fall far from their trees, when a right angle, inept at math, turns to poetry and articulates difficult speech with an elfin shoe. M. Dear M, we are lovers, transposed. When we look at each other, we see the finale of scene. We clothe one another with attributes we deem our meet. What are we if not isosceles teepees stripped by storm, left alone together, or 2 compasses drawing from the same point? Had we not met when we did, what would we have become? M. We stand together holding hands against the setting sun, against the horizon. We hold on tight, our fingers slipping through our fingers like a net or Venn diagram, like this life together, something caught, something falling through, a handful of days shared at an intersection. N. No ideas but an N, almost eyes, or nearly like a tilde in water, indefinite nano, tongue against the palate, plug your nose and say, my mommy meets me. No, 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 no. A knot in the womb, a broken nose, arced in nothing. O. An open and shut case? What a tease. What do you offer? What do you deliver? I want to say, you complete me, but you don't. You complete yourself. After all these years, oh, I finally see through you. You've led me around and on, endlessly wandering your periphery, but you will never let me in. Let me in. P. Stop. Just stop. You cannot push me away. Even though you've grown silent, turned in on yourself, I dreamt you on my lips. I love you, P. I will always love you, like an early speech sound, like a love twin. Q. Dear Q, I can't think about you anymore without thinking about National Bohemian Beer, which is, of course, a slippery slope, a sandy hill, a camel light passing from suits to nuts through the eye of a needle. Q. I know you're reaching under the table for the beloved that dare not speak its name, but the left hand doesn't know what the right is doing. You're stroking the wrong key. That's my thigh, rapscallion. Quit it. Q. If you would just bury the hatchet with the hard consonants, admit it, you're a luxury, too strange and exotic to be necessary. You'd be better served. No one gives a quintillion about you, not even your man who called you super vacuo. But don't pout. The wind sits in the shoulder of your sail. Let C and K have k. Be cute, not coy, to thine own self. Grapple soft vowels to your soul. Become the jelly of calligraphers and the darling of type design. They tend to be nerds enthralled by boisterous Eurotrash girl letters. R. Dear P, thank God you are done with those notions of conceptual and performance art. What bullshit. The 80s call, you are not avant. Put your kickstand up. Be introspective but not insular. You want to imagine yourself in Ouroboros? Okay. But you can't be a brooding teenager forever, for Christ's sake. Keep your head on straight. Step into the real world. S. You errant knave, je t'adore. But if you think infinity is forever, then good fences make good neighbors, good gates make good entrances, bad Frenching makes good love letters. Here's the yin and yang of it all. We're not exactly opposite or equal. We cannot draw a circle around our reservoir, cannot make an ocean of our bay. Our love is not too big to fail. It's a mortal coil, subject to the burden support duality, like all emotion recollected in tranquility. T. Sometimes I look at T and see the inestimable sum of human pain, as if the species comes to it for redress of all its sins and sinuousness. Sometimes I look at T and see the perpendicularities of my life, not two roads diverging, rather a road dead-ending in a choice, this love or the one I can't quite have out of my mind. That day we met, I looked at you and saw my spirit level and knew I was but one jot in a pantomime. You. Since we met, my cup runneth over with Wallace Stevens type of nothing. V. When you die, I'll lay upon your grave and make of my mouth a V. And you, supine, will of your mouth make a V. And like lovers in a myth, our lips will meet at the very thin line between the upper and lower cases of this world. W. Mutton dressed as lamb, or a consonant in sheep's clothing. W is the homely third sister in a tenuous aristocratic family, a spinster with birthing hips. W, double V, ich bin ein Doppelganger. I can no longer see the mountain range for the mountains in my peripheral vision. X. We're coming to the end. Husband and wife are one, but X is two crossed eyes, which is what our love is, the signature of illiterates. X. Rather than fall in on ourselves, when we fell, like innocent victims in a drive-by, we fell across one another. Y. Two roads converged like the legs of my lover. I looked down one as long I could, then embraced the other, as if a boy and his mother. Knowing how V's lead to Y and Y to Z like a bolt of lightning or lightning, I doubted I should be back in this constellation for a while. Yin and yang, and baby makes three. Z. A to Z, a long-distance relationship. Like all fire escapes, Z is a last resort. Blind love, eternal rest, a never-ending Canadian girlfriend.